My name is Marcus. I'm a construction foreman. 3 years ago, I fell 4 stories from a scaffold at a hospital renovation site in downtown Phoenix. My heart stopped for 8 minutes on the concrete below. When my spirit left my body, I didn't see angels or a tunnel of light. I saw a gate, massive, wide as a football stadium, packed with normal-looking people walking through it calmly, like they were entering a shopping mall. And when I started to understand what was happening at that gate, I realized why hell isn't a punishment. It's a choice. I've been a construction foreman for 17 years. It's not the kind of job people dream about as kids. Nobody grows up saying they want to spend their life on scaffolds in 100-degree heat, managing crews, checking safety protocols, and making sure buildings don't collapse. But it's what I knew. My father was a foreman. His father before him worked construction in Chicago during the boom years after World War II. So when I graduated high school in Tempe, Arizona, I didn't go to college. I went straight to work. The job taught me discipline. You can't mess around when you're 40 feet in the air installing steel beams. One mistake means someone gets hurt. One miscalculation means a building might not stand. One moment of distraction means you might not come home to your family. So I learned to be careful. I learned to triple-check everything. I learned to trust my gut when something felt wrong. And for 17 years, that approach kept me alive. My life was simple. I woke up at 4:30 every morning. My wife, Rebecca, would already be awake making coffee. She worked as a nurse at the same hospital I was renovating, which is how we met. She'd been treating one of my crew members who'd cut his hand on a saw, and I'd walked into the emergency room to check on him. She looked at me with these tired eyes and said, "You need to make sure your guys wear gloves." I said, "Yes, ma'am." 3 months later, we were dating. 2 years after that, we were married. We had one son, Tyler. He was 14 years old, obsessed with video games, terrible at doing his homework, and the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't tell him that enough. I was always working, always on a job site, always coming home exhausted, eating dinner in silence, falling asleep on the couch while he tried to show me something on his phone. Rebecca used to say, "Marcus, he's not going to be 14 forever. Pay attention now." I'd nod and say, I know. Just let me finish this project." But there was always another project. The day I died started like any other day. It was a Tuesday, June 9th, 2022. Phoenix was already hitting 105 degrees by 9 in the morning. We were working on the expansion of St. Luke's Medical Center, a 6-story addition that would house a new cancer treatment wing. The building was almost finished. We were in the final phase, installing exterior paneling, checking structural integrity, making sure everything met code before the city inspectors arrived. I was responsible for overseeing the scaffold crews. Scaffolds are temporary structures, but they're dangerous if not assembled correctly. You've got to check every joint, every brace, every platform. You've got to make sure the weight distribution is even. You've got to verify that the anchors holding the scaffold to the building are secure. I'd done this 1,000 times. I knew what to look for. I trusted my crew. That morning, I checked the 4th-floor scaffold with my assistant foreman, a guy named Darren. He'd been working with me for 6 years, solid guy, dependable. We walked the length of the scaffold together, testing the planks, checking the railings, making sure nothing was loose. Everything looked good. Darren signed off on it. I signed off on it. We moved on to the next section. Around 11 o'clock, I got a call from the site manager. There was a problem with one of the steel beams on the 5th floor. It hadn't been installed at the right angle, and if we didn't fix it now, the whole section would fail inspection. I told Darren to keep supervising the scaffold crews while I went upstairs to deal with the beam issue. That decision saved his life and ended mine. I spent 2 hours on the 5th floor with a structural engineer, measuring angles, recalculating load distribution, figuring out how to fix the beam without tearing down the entire section. By the time we finished, it was past 1 in the afternoon. I was exhausted, hungry, and annoyed. I radioed Darren to check on the progress downstairs. He said everything was fine. The crews were finishing up the 4th-floor panels. They'd be done within the hour. I decided to go down and inspect their work myself. That's what a good foreman does. You don't just trust the reports, you check with your own eyes. So I took the exterior ladder down to the 4th floor and stepped onto the scaffold. The moment my boots hit the platform, I felt something wrong. It was subtle, just a slight shift under my weight, like the scaffold had moved a fraction of an inch. I stopped, looked down at the planks beneath me. They seemed fine. I looked at the railings. They were secure. I looked at the anchors connecting the scaffold to the building. They looked tight, but my gut told me something was off. I should have listened. I should have stepped back onto the ladder and called for a full inspection, but I didn't. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I'd checked this scaffold that morning and it was fine. I told myself I was just tired and imagining things, so I kept walking. I made it about 10 feet across the platform when I heard the sound. It was a metallic groan, low and deep like the scaffold was complaining. Then a crack, sharp and sudden. I looked down just in time to see one of the anchor bolts tear out of the concrete wall. The scaffold tilted. I grabbed for the railing, but it was already falling with me. The whole structure peeled away from the building like a piece of tape being ripped off. I remember the fall in pieces. I remember the wind rushing past my face. I remember seeing the sky above me, bright blue and cloudless. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I die. I remember Rebecca's face. I remember Tyler's laugh. I remember wishing I'd told them I loved them more. And then I hit the ground. The impact was instant. I didn't feel pain at first, just pressure, like the entire weight of the world had landed on my chest. I tried to breathe, but my lungs wouldn't work. I tried to move, but my body didn't respond. I could hear shouting, people running, someone screaming my name, and then everything went dark. Not the kind of dark you get when you close your eyes. The kind of dark that swallows everything. The kind of dark that means you're not in your body anymore. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't on the ground. I wasn't in pain. I was standing in a place I didn't recognize, surrounded by people I'd never met, staring at a gate I couldn't explain. And that's when I realized I wasn't alive anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere between, and I was about to see something that would change everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the choices we make. The first thing I noticed wasn't the place itself. It was the silence. Not complete silence, because I could hear murmuring, footsteps, the rustling of clothes as people moved. But there was no traffic noise, no construction sounds, no Phoenix heat roaring in my ears. Just this strange, muffled quiet like being inside a building with soundproof walls. I looked down at my hands. They looked normal. I flexed my fingers. They moved. I touched my chest where I'd hit the ground. No pain, no broken ribs, no blood. I was intact, but I wasn't in my body. At least not the body that had just fallen 4 stories onto concrete. I was standing in what looked like an enormous waiting area. The floor beneath me was smooth like polished stone, but it didn't reflect light the way stone should. The walls, if you could call them that, seemed to stretch infinitely in every direction. They had a texture that shimmered, like heat waves rising off asphalt on a summer day. Above me there was no ceiling, just an expanse that could have been sky or space, or nothing at all. It was bright, but there was no sun. The light came from everywhere and nowhere. And then there were the people, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. I couldn't tell where the crowd ended. They filled the space in every direction. Men, women, children, elderly folks, people of every race and age. Some wore business suits, some wore hospital gowns, some wore construction gear like mine, some wore pajamas. It was like someone had pulled people from every possible moment of their lives and dropped them here. What struck me most was how calm they were. Nobody was panicking. Nobody was crying. Nobody was asking where they were. They just stood there or walked slowly forward, all facing the same direction, all moving toward the same thing, the gate. I couldn't see the whole thing at first because there were so many people in front of me, but as I moved through the crowd trying to understand what was happening, I started to see it. And when I finally saw it fully, my breath caught in my throat. It was massive, wider than any structure I'd ever built, taller than any building I'd ever worked on. It looked like it was made of stone, but the stone had veins of light running through it, glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. The gate was wide open, completely open. There were no doors, no barriers, no guards, just an archway so enormous that you could fit an entire football stadium through it. And people were walking through it, one after another, steady, unhurried, like they were entering a movie theater or a grocery store. I watched a man in a business suit walk through without even glancing up at the gate. I watched a woman holding a child's hand step through, the child skipping along beside her like they were going to a park. I watched an elderly man with a cane shuffle through slowly, his face blank, his eyes empty. I needed to understand what was happening. I turned to the person next to me, a woman who looked about 50 years old. She wore a floral dress and had her hair tied back in a bun. She seemed comfortable, like she'd been here for a while. I asked her, "Excuse me, where are we?" She looked at me with a tired smile. "I'm not entirely sure, but I know that gate leads somewhere, and everyone here is waiting to go through." I asked. What's on the other side? She shrugged. I don't know, but I've been watching people go through for a while now, and none of them have come back. That sent a chill through me. I looked at the gate again, watching the endless stream of people disappearing through it. I asked her, have you gone through yet? She shook her head. Not yet. I'm still deciding. I asked, deciding what? She paused, then said, whether I'm ready to accept what I did with my life. Before I could ask what she meant, she turned away and started walking toward the gate. I tried to talk to other people. Most of them didn't respond. They either ignored me or looked at me with blank expressions like they were already somewhere else in their minds. But there was one man who spoke to me. He was younger than me, maybe in his 30s, wearing a paramedic uniform. His name tag said Kevin. I approached him and asked, do you know what this place is? He nodded slowly. I think so. I think we're dead, or at least not alive anymore. I felt my stomach drop even though I didn't have a stomach. Not really, Kevin continued. I died in an ambulance heart attack. I was only 32, didn't see it coming. 1 minute I was responding to a call, the next minute I was here. I told him about my fall, about the scaffold, about the impact. He listened, then said, yeah, that sounds about right. I think everyone here died, and now we're waiting. I asked, waiting for what? He pointed at the gate. For that, whatever it is. I asked him if he was going to go through. He looked at the gate for a long time before answering. I don't know. Part of me wants to. It looks easy. Everyone's going. But something about it feels wrong. Like once I go through, there's no coming back. I felt the same way. There was something deeply unsettling about the gate. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't scary in the way a dark alley or a dangerous animal is scary. It was scary because of how normal it seemed. How easy. How welcoming. I started walking through the crowd, observing. I watched people's faces as they approached the gate. Most of them looked resigned, like they'd accepted their fate. A few looked confused, like they didn't understand why they were here. But almost all of them eventually walked through. I saw a teenage boy hesitate at the entrance, looking back over his shoulder like he was searching for someone. Then he sighed and stepped through. I saw an old woman stop right before the gate, close her eyes and whisper something I couldn't hear. Then she walked through. I saw a man in a military uniform stand at the threshold for what felt like an eternity, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. Then he too walked through, and then I saw something that broke my heart. A little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She wore a pink dress with flowers on it. Her hair was in pigtails. She was alone. No parents, no family, just a little girl walking calmly toward a gate that led to God knows where. I ran toward her. I called out, "Wait, stop." She turned and looked at me with big brown eyes. I knelt down in front of her and asked, "Sweetheart, where are your parents?" She looked at me like I'd asked a silly question. "They're not here." I asked, "Do you know where you're going?" She nodded. "Everyone's going there." She pointed at the gate. I asked, "But do you know what's on the other side?" She shook her head. "No, but it doesn't matter. Everyone goes." I tried to stop her. I tried to hold her hand and pull her back, but she slipped away from me like water through my fingers and walked toward the gate. I watched her tiny figure disappear into the archway, swallowed by whatever was on the other side. I felt sick. I felt angry. I felt helpless. How could a child end up here? How could a 6-year-old girl walk through a gate to what might be hell? That's when I started to understand. This wasn't a place of punishment, not in the way I'd imagined. There were no demons, no fire, no torture. This was something far more subtle. This was a place where people went because they chose to, not consciously, not by saying, "I want to go to hell," but by living their lives in a way that led them here, by making choices that slowly, quietly, inevitably brought them to this gate. I thought about my own life. I thought about all the times I chose work over family, all the times I told Rebecca, "Just one more project," all the times I ignored Tyler because I was too tired, all the times I prioritized money, comfort, security over the people I loved. I thought about how I'd been so focused on building buildings that I forgot to build relationships, and I realized something that terrified me. I was standing in line for the broad gate, and if I didn't figure out how to get out, I'd walk through it just like everyone else. I don't know how long I stood there. Time didn't work the same way in that place. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. There was no sun rising or setting, no clocks, no way to measure anything except by watching people walk through the gate, and they kept coming, an endless stream of souls moving forward like water flowing downhill. I backed away from the crowd. I needed space to think. I needed to understand what was happening. I walked to what felt like the edge of the waiting area, though there was no real edge. The space just seemed to fade into a kind of gray mist. I sat down on the smooth floor and put my head in my hands. That's when the gate changed. Or maybe I changed. Maybe my perception shifted. I don't know how to explain it except to say that suddenly I could see through the gate. Not physically. It still looked like a massive stone archway. But now I could see what was on the other side. And what I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't fire. It wasn't demons with pitchforks. It wasn't people being tortured in lakes of burning sulfur. It was something far worse. It was life. Real life. The lives people had already lived, playing out again and again like a movie stuck on repeat. I saw a man in his 50s sitting in a corner office. Expensive suit. Big desk. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city skyline. He should have looked successful. But his face was hollow. Empty. He was surrounded by everything he'd worked for, but he was completely alone. No family photos on his desk. No one calling him. No one visiting. He sat there staring at his phone, scrolling through contacts, and I realized he didn't have anyone to call. He'd spent his entire life climbing the corporate ladder, stepping on people, sacrificing relationships for promotions. And now he had the corner office, but no one to share it with. I saw a woman in her 40s standing in a kitchen. Beautiful house, marble countertops, stainless steel appliances. She was cooking dinner for one. Her children had grown up and moved away. Her husband had left her years ago. She'd spent her whole life building the perfect home, buying the perfect furniture, creating the perfect image, but she'd never actually connected with anyone. She'd been too busy curating her Instagram feed to notice her family slipping away. Now she stood in her perfect kitchen, completely alone, wondering why no one ever called. I saw a man in his 60s lying in a hospital bed. He was dying, but no one was there. No children holding his hand. No wife sitting beside him. No friends coming to visit. He'd been a workaholic, a businessman, a man who measured success in dollars and deals. He'd made millions. He'd bought houses and cars and boats. But he'd never invested in people. He'd never taken time to build relationships. He'd always said, later when I retire, when I have more time. But later never came. And now he was dying alone, surrounded by machines with nurses who didn't know his name. I saw families torn apart, parents and children who hadn't spoken in years, siblings who'd stopped talking over inheritance disputes, marriages that had died long before death certificates were signed. I saw people who'd chased fame, money, power, pleasure, and when they finally got what they wanted, they realized it meant nothing. I saw successful people who were miserable, rich people who were bankrupt in every way that mattered, people who had everything except the one thing that would have saved them, which was love. And then I saw something that destroyed me. I saw myself. I saw Marcus. I saw me coming home from work at 8 o'clock at night, exhausted, covered in dust, smelling like sweat and concrete. I saw Rebecca waiting for me at the door. She smiled, but her eyes were tired. She asked, "How was your day?" I grunted something about deadlines and inspections. I didn't ask about her day. I didn't ask how her shift at the hospital had been. I just walked past her, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and collapsed on the couch. I saw Tyler trying to show me something on his phone. A video, a game, something he was excited about. He said, "Dad, look at this." I said, "Not now, buddy. I'm tired." He stood there for a moment waiting, hoping I'd change my mind. Then he walked away. I saw the disappointment on his face. I saw Rebecca watching from the kitchen, her jaw tight, her hands gripping the counter. I saw myself falling asleep on the couch alone, while my family went to bed without me. I saw another memory, Tyler's 13th birthday. He'd asked me to take the day off work. He wanted to go to a Suns game, just the two of us, father and son. I'd promised him I would. But then I got a call from the site manager. Emergency. Structural issue. I had to come in. I told Tyler, "I'm sorry, buddy. We'll do it another time." He didn't cry. He didn't yell. He just nodded and said, "Okay." But I saw his face. I saw the hope die in his eyes. I saw him realize that work would always come first. I saw Rebecca sitting at the kitchen table late at night crying. I wasn't there. I was working a night shift. She had a letter in her hand, a diagnosis, breast cancer, stage 1, treatable, but terrifying. She needed me. She needed her husband. But I wasn't there. I was at a construction site, managing a crew, making sure deadlines were met. She went to her first oncology appointment alone. She went through treatment alone. She survived alone. And I never even noticed how much she was carrying. The visions kept coming. Memory after memory of moments I'd missed, conversations I'd ignored, opportunities to love that I'd thrown away. And I realized something that shattered me. The broad gate wasn't a punishment waiting in the future. It was the life I'd already lived. It was the emptiness I'd created. It was the consequence of 1,000 small choices to put work before family, money before relationships, comfort before connection. I fell to my knees, or at least I think I did. I couldn't tell anymore. I was sobbing, not with sound. I didn't have vocal cords, but with my entire being. I was grieving for the life I'd wasted, for the love I'd ignored, for the son I'd neglected, for the wife I'd taken for granted. I'd spent 17 years building structures that would stand for decades, but I'd failed to build the one thing that mattered, which was a family that would stand forever. And then I felt it, a hand on my shoulder, warm, real, different from everything else in that place. I looked up, and even though I couldn't see a face clearly, I knew who it was. I felt it in my soul. It was the presence I'd heard about in Sunday school as a kid, the presence my grandmother used to talk about when she prayed, the presence that every fiber of my being recognized, even though I'd spent most of my adult life ignoring it. It was Christ. It was Jesus. It was the one person who had the authority to pull me out of this line I'd been standing in. He didn't speak with words, at least not words I could hear with ears, but I understood him. His message came through like a download directly into my consciousness, and what he said broke me completely. Marcus, you've seen the broad gate. You've seen where you were headed. You've seen the life you built. And now I'm giving you something very few people get. A choice. I looked up at him. I wanted to see his face. I wanted to see his eyes. But all I could see was light. Brilliant. Overwhelming. Pure. I asked without speaking, "What choice?" And his response changed everything. You can walk through that gate and live the consequences of the life you chose. Or you can go back. Back to your body. Back to your family. Back to a second chance. But if you go back different. You go back broken. You go back changed. And you have to choose now. I didn't hesitate. The moment he gave me the choice, I knew my answer. I said, I want to go back, please. I'll do anything. I'll change. I'll be different. Just let me go back to them. The light around him grew brighter, and I felt his presence shift. Not angry, not disappointed, just truthful. Marcus, if you go back, you need to understand what that means. Your body is broken. You fell 4 stories. Your spine is fractured. Your legs are shattered. Your ribs are cracked. The doctors will say you'll never walk again. You'll spend months in a hospital bed. You'll be in constant pain. Rebecca will have to take care of you. Tyler will have to watch his father struggle to do basic things. Is that the life you want to return to? I didn't care. I didn't care if I never walked again. I didn't care if I spent the rest of my life in a wheelchair. I didn't care if I had to relearn how to feed myself. I just wanted another chance. I wanted to tell Rebecca I loved her. I wanted to tell Tyler I was proud of him. I wanted to be present. Really present. Not just physically in the room, but emotionally there. Spiritually there. I said, I don't care what condition I'm in. I just want to go back. The light pulsed, and then his voice came again, not with judgment, but with a kind of sad compassion. There's more you need to understand. Darren, your assistant foreman, will survive the fall. He was on the same scaffold when it collapsed. He'll have injuries, but he'll live. But there was a young apprentice on the ground below. His name is Miguel. He's 19 years old. When the scaffold fell, debris hit him. He's in surgery right now. He won't make it. His mother is sitting in a hospital waiting room, praying for a miracle that won't come. His father is pacing the hallway, blaming himself for encouraging his son to work construction. Miguel's death is a consequence of the choices that led to that scaffold failing. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Miguel, I remembered him. Young kid, always smiling, always eager to learn. He'd asked me questions constantly. Mr. Marcus, why do we use this type of bolt? Mr. Marcus, how do you calculate load distribution? I'd brushed him off most of the time, told him to focus on the task at hand, told him he'd learn as he went, and now he was dead. Because of a scaffold I'd signed off on, because of an inspection I'd rushed through, because I'd trusted my crew without double-checking their work. I started to collapse under the weight of that guilt, but the presence held me up. His voice came again. Miguel's death is not your fault alone. The construction company cut corners on safety equipment. The scaffold manufacturer used substandard materials. The city inspector passed inspections he should have failed. There were a dozen decisions by a dozen people that led to that collapse. But you were part of that chain. And if you go back, you'll have to carry that knowledge. Can you live with that? I didn't know if I could, but I knew I had to try. I said, if I go back, can I do something? Can I change things? Can I make sure other people don't die the same way? The presence didn't answer immediately. Then he said, you can, but it won't be easy. You'll have to speak up. You'll have to fight systems that don't want to change. You'll have to sacrifice comfort and security to do what's right. Are you willing to do that? I said yes. I said it without hesitation, because I realized something in that moment. My life before the fall had been comfortable, but it had been meaningless. I'd built buildings, but I hadn't built anything that mattered. I'd made money, but I hadn't made a difference. If I got a second chance, I wasn't going to waste it on comfort. I was going to use it for something bigger. The light around the presence intensified until I couldn't see anything else. And then his voice came one last time, and this time it was filled with both warning and hope. Marcus, the broad gate is always open. It's open right now. It's open every day of your life. Every time you choose selfishness over love, you're walking toward it. Every time you choose money over people, you're walking toward it. Every time you choose comfort over sacrifice, you're walking toward it. The gate is wide because it's easy. It requires nothing from you. But there's another gate, a narrow gate. It's harder to find, it's harder to walk through. It requires everything from you. It requires you to die to yourself, to give up your pride, to admit you were wrong, to change. That's the gate I'm offering you now. Will you take it? I reached out toward the light. I couldn't see my hand, but I felt myself moving forward. I felt myself choosing, and I said with every ounce of strength I had left, yes. The moment I said it, everything changed. The waiting area disappeared. The crowd vanished. The broad gate was gone, and suddenly I was falling again. Not through space, through time, through dimensions I couldn't understand. I felt myself being pulled back into something solid, something painful, something real, and then I heard it, beeping, steady, rhythmic, a heart monitor. I heard voices, urgent, professional. He's back. We've got a pulse, start compressions, get me an airway. I tried to open my eyes, but my body wouldn't respond. I tried to move, but nothing worked. I was trapped in my own body, aware but unable to do anything. I heard Rebecca's voice. She was screaming, Marcus, oh God, Marcus, please. I wanted to tell her I was okay. I wanted to tell her I was here, but I couldn't. I heard Tyler crying, deep, broken sobs that tore through me worse than any physical pain. Dad, please don't leave, please. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the times I got mad at you. Please come back. I wanted to hold him. I wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault. I wanted to tell him I was the one who should be apologizing. But all I could do was lie there, trapped in a broken body, listening to my family fall apart. The doctors worked on me for what felt like hours. I heard them talking about spinal injuries, internal bleeding, fractured bones. I heard one of them say, even if he survives, he'll never walk again. I heard another say, we need to prepare the family for the worst. But I didn't care, because I was alive. I was back. I had another chance. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time was strange. I drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes I'd wake up and see Rebecca sitting beside my bed, holding my hand, her eyes red from crying. Sometimes I'd wake up and see Tyler asleep in a chair, his head resting on the edge of my bed. Sometimes I'd wake up alone with only the sound of machines keeping me company. But every time I woke up, I was grateful, because I wasn't at the broad gate anymore. I was here, with my family, with a second chance. The first time I was able to speak was 3 weeks after the accident. My throat was raw from the breathing tube they'd had down it. My voice came out as barely a whisper. Rebecca was there. She leaned in close, her ear near my mouth. I said, I love you. Just those 3 words. But they were the most important words I'd ever spoken. She burst into tears. Not tears of sadness, tears of relief, tears of joy. She kissed my forehead and said, I love you too. I thought I'd lost you. I wanted to tell her everything. About the gate, about the visions, about the choice. But I couldn't. Not yet. I was too weak. So I just held her hand, as tightly as my broken body would allow, and I made a silent promise. I would never take her for granted again. I would never let work come before her again. I would never forget how precious this second chance was. The recovery was brutal. They told me I'd never walk again, and for the first 6 months, they were right. I spent my days in a hospital bed, then a rehabilitation center, learning how to do things most people take for granted, how to sit up without help, how to move from a bed to a wheelchair, how to accept that my body would never be the same. But something else changed during those months, something deeper than my spine. My heart changed. Rebecca came to see me every single day. She'd work her shift at the hospital, then come straight to my room. She'd sit beside my bed and tell me about her day. She'd read to me when I was too tired to talk. She'd hold my hand when the pain was too much. And for the first time in our marriage, I really listened. I asked her questions. I asked about her patience. I asked about her fears. I asked about her dreams. And I discovered that I'd been married to this incredible woman for 15 years, but I barely knew her. She told me about the breast cancer scare she'd had 3 years ago. She told me how terrified she'd been, how she'd gone to appointments alone because I was always working, how she'd cried in hospital parking lots wishing I was there. She didn't say it with anger. She said it with sadness, and that was worse, because I realized I'd failed her in the moment she needed me most. I apologized. Not a quick "I'm sorry," a real apology. I told her I'd been selfish. I told her I'd prioritized the wrong things. I told her I'd taken her for granted, and then I made her a promise. I said, "Rebecca, I don't know if I'll ever walk again. I don't know what kind of life we're going to have, but I promise you, from this moment forward, you will never be alone. I will be present. I will be here, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, completely." She cried, and then she said, "That's all I ever wanted." Tyler struggled more than anyone. He was 14 years old, dealing with a father who'd almost died, watching me learn how to use a wheelchair, seeing me in constant pain. He started skipping school. His grades dropped. Rebecca told me he'd been getting into fights. One day, about 4 months into my recovery, he came to visit me alone. He sat in the chair beside my bed, staring at the floor. I asked him, "What's going on, son?" He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "It's my fault." I asked, "What's your fault?" He said, "You fell because you were working, and you were working because of me, because you wanted to give me a good life. So if you hadn't been trying to provide for me, you wouldn't have been on that scaffold, so it's my fault." My heart broke. I reached out and took his hand. I said, "Tyler, listen to me. This was not your fault. I fell because I made a mistake. I rushed an inspection. I trusted equipment I should have double-checked. That's on me. But you know what? That fall saved my life." He looked confused. I said, "Before I fell, I was a terrible father. I was never home. I was always working. I ignored you. I ignored your mom. I was so focused on making money that I forgot why I was making it. But when I died, I saw something that changed me. I saw what my life would have become if I'd kept living that way. And it was empty, lonely, meaningless. So yeah, I fell. Yeah, I'm in a wheelchair. But I'd rather be here, broken and present, than healthy and absent." He cried, really cried, the kind of crying he'd probably been holding in for months. And I held him, as much as I could with my limited mobility. I held my son and let him know he was loved. That moment changed our relationship. From that day forward, Tyler started coming to my room every day after school. We'd talk about everything, about his life, his fears, his dreams. And for the first time, I actually knew my son. 9 months after the accident, something unexpected happened. I regained feeling in my left leg. The doctors said it was impossible, that spinal injuries like mine don't heal that way. But I felt it, a tingling sensation, then movement, then strength. Over the next year, through intense physical therapy, I learned to walk again. Not perfectly. I still use a cane. I still have pain. But I can walk, and every step I take is a reminder of grace. I never went back to construction, not in the same way, but I did something else. I started a foundation in Miguel's name, the Miguel Ramirez Construction Safety Foundation. We advocate for better safety standards. We provide free safety equipment to small construction companies. We train workers on proper protocols. Miguel's parents are part of the board. They've turned their grief into purpose, and together, we've saved lives. I know we have. Because contractors reach out to thank us. Workers send messages saying our training prevented an accident. And every time I hear those stories, I think about the broad gate, about how many people are walking toward it without realizing it. I also started speaking at churches, at construction conferences, at high schools. I tell my story, not the sanitized version, the real version. I tell people about the gate, about the choice, about the second chance. And I tell them that hell isn't something that happens after you die. It's something you create while you're alive. It's the emptiness of a life lived for yourself. It's the loneliness of relationships you never built. It's the regret of time you wasted on things that don't matter. Last week, a man came up to me after I spoke at a church in Scottsdale. He was in his 50s, wearing a suit, looked successful. He said, "I'm that guy, the guy you talked about, the one in the corner office with no one to call. I've spent 30 years climbing the corporate ladder and I just realized I'm at the top completely alone." He started crying, right there in the church lobby. I put my hand on his shoulder and said, "You can change. You're still breathing. That means you still have time. Choose the narrow gate. It's harder. It requires sacrifice, but it's worth it." 3 days ago, I got an email from him. He'd quit his job. He'd reached out to his estranged daughter. He'd started volunteering at a homeless shelter. He said, "For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm living for something bigger than myself." That's what the narrow gate does. It transforms you. Today is the 3rd anniversary of my fall. Rebecca, Tyler, and I went to the construction site where it happened. It's a fully functioning cancer treatment center now. Patients go there every day to fight for their lives. And I realized something beautiful. My fall, my death, my second chance, it all happened so that this building could be finished, so that people could be healed. There's purpose in pain. There's meaning in suffering. You just have to choose to see it. I'm not a perfect man. I still have days where I fall back into old patterns. Days where I prioritize work over family. Days where I forget to be grateful. But the difference now is I catch myself. I remember the gate. I remember the choice. And I course correct. Because I know where the broad gate leads. And I refuse to walk through it. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you've been living for money, for success, for comfort, for anything except love and connection, I'm telling you right now you're standing in line for the broad gate. You might not see it, you might not feel it, but every choice you make is moving you toward it. Stop, turn around, choose the narrow gate. It's hard, it's uncomfortable. It requires you to admit you were wrong, it requires you to change. But it's the only gate that leads to life, real life, the kind of life that matters. Don't wait for a fall. Don't wait for a near-death experience. Don't wait until it's too late. Choose now. Choose today. Choose love over money. Choose people over possessions. Choose presence over productivity. Choose the narrow gate, because the broad gate is always open, and it's easier than you think to walk through it. But once you do, there's no coming back. If this story impacted you, if it made you think, if it challenged you to change, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel. Not for me, but because stories like this need to be shared. Because there are people out there standing at the broad gate right now and they need to hear that there's another option. They need to know that change is possible, that grace is real, that second chances exist. So subscribe, share this video, and choose the narrow gate. Your life depends on it. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and may you choose wisely.